reason that the Hudson High School students had left school was because of the tragedy in Birmingham, Alabama, in which the 16th Street Church was bombed, and children younger than any anybody I see here today had been murdered. So I put it in that context. I had come from Atlanta, went to Birmingham, and I was there within an hour of the time that happened. But then when I came to Selma, and I'll get to the question. I resisted on behalf of all the oppressed people. That I knew resistance was to. But I also tried to stand up at that time in solidarity with not just the students, but with those who had struggled for freedom. It's hard, as you can see, for me to retell this particular story because accounts of the story say that I was a judo child. And pretty much bloody because I refused to comply with an evil system, with a system that would not treat people in a good way. Thank you for your patience. I do not like to relive those moments because even though they were moments of suffering for myself, they reflect the moments of suffering of those like me. Who would find justice Thank you for your patience.
Thank you. Thank you. This man is so patient with us. He taught us everything by example. Now we have two other legendary individuals who's also taught me. My brother, Danny Glover. You know Danny Glover? Seen him in movies? We're going to make a movie with him right now. Danny to come up. And then it's Elaine Brown. You're going to hear from them in a minute. She led the Black Panther Party, a revolutionary organization like Worthwhile, who resisted and refused to comply with illegal orders and an illegal system that was oppressing our people. Now this is the legendary Danny Glover, my dear friend and brother.
Hello. Hello, this is wonderful to be here with you as we celebrate the community and the work that's been done in the community, the achievements that have happened in this community. And you're the next generation. You can probably know me from a few films that I did, like Color Purple. What's the other one? Tell me some of the films that I've been in. I can't even remember. Lethal Weapon. Okay, what else? Somebody pull out IDD, whatever. No, I mean, the ones that you probably looked at, watched. I didn't come here just to promote my films. I come here to spend this moment with you and ask to come here and talk about the importance this community is, and also to try to find some ways in which you see your life in a larger context, and being larger. If you're the next generation, you're the ones who are certainly of the future. How do you feel about being the future of this community? I was asking you. I want you to answer. I want you to. At some of the same times I go to sleep as well. At the time. But that's all right. Don't embarrass it. You talk to me. You talk about how important education is. You tell me how important it is to find ways in which you can be an asset to the community. Let me say asset, a benefit for the community. Even at a very young age.
You want to grab it? You can grab it on my page.
I'm sorry I can't remember my films. You can't remember any of them, right? Okay. Yeah. Tell me one so I can put my memory.
Jumanji. What is it? Jumanji. Jumanji.
Saw, yeah. I'm really having a problem remembering what film, so I need some help. See, I mean about 50 films, something. Yeah. One with, I'm getting nervous here because I can't remember my film. I did a film a long time ago when I was much younger, Places in the Heart, and I did that. But let's talk about what about you talk to me, all right? You talk. You want to ask something? You have any questions to ask me?
What does a young person have to? What do the young people need to know about entertainment? How do you become an actor, or is there a way? Is there a path from Selma to become a star like Danny Glover is?
Let me tell you. Go ahead. You have something to say. Here.
How did you feel once you became famous?
I'm sorry.
How did you feel once you became famous?
Once I became famous, I don't know if my life changed and more people call me and ask me to do something. I live in the same neighborhood, the same community in San Francisco, and I've lived in that community since I was 11 years old. I'm 77 now, so that's, yeah. I'm 77 and I still live in the same community. Before I was an actor, I worked in community development. I worked in educational programs, you know, math literacy. My favorite subject in school was math. So I took all math, you know. I took all the kind of courses that you take, like, how many of you taking algebra? Algebra, geometry, well, you'll get to it. You'll get to it. But I had real trouble reading, and I was really difficult reading. But one of the things I excelled in was math. So the irony of it, I do reading so much now. I do so much reading now in my life as an adult. You know, when I struggle with reading. But I really had to struggle with what I do, or because of memory, having to memorize. But the fun thing about what I do is to kind of create characters, create people, you know. You see, anybody see The Color Purple? Yes. Okay.
I don't know who he is in The Color
How about Dumbo Prom?
Yes, he's that man.
You know that man. I'm that man.
Nowhere like that in real life.
My grandmother saw The Color Purple. My grandmother, she was like 90 or something. She saw The Color Purple, and she said, "I'm gonna get a switch after that boy." You know, we all know what a switch is, huh? Yeah.
You got a question?
You know what a switch.
You got a
and
question?
every time I saw her, I had to bring a switch in the house with she lived in a farm in Georgia, and that's where my mother is from, Georgia. And she would have a switch. I had to bring her the switch. You know about that, huh? You had to go get your own switch, you know. Who has to get, when you get a spanking, who has to go bring their own switch? Go get their own. All right, you know what I'm talking about, dude. You had to get your.
You got a question? He has a question for you over here, young fella.
Follow this up. You know what the major difference between this amazing man and a lot of movie stars and famous rappers and a lot of famous athletes. What's the difference between him and the rest of them? Do you think they would be here this morning?
No.
Celebrating history?
Not for free.
That's the major
They
difference.
gonna charge you.
He's always been in the movement, just like the regular used to come in every year. There were a few people in the movement that never gave, they gave up millions of dollars just to fight for us. So y'all give a big hand again.
Okay. You gonna answer your question?
Yes, sir.
I used to do the same thing, brother. But that doesn't say anything. You just gotta get some more sleep, right? But that seems to me. But ask me some questions.
He's got a question right here.
Growing up as a black child, how did you stay focused on your dreams?
Growing up as a black child, how did you stay focused on your dreams?
Good
Excellent.
question.
How did I keep focused? Because when I was your age, you know, there were so many different things that I saw. I mean, when I was your age, it was this beginning of this civil rights movement that we know about, that we talk about, and it was the history about. You know, when I saw when I looked at Montgomery bus boycott. You know what year that was? When was the Montgomery bus boycott?
1954.
1 year later.
Kids.
55. You remember that? I mean, I remember that. So in 1955, I was born in 1946. So in 1955, I was 9 years old. And every night, I would watch with my parents, my mother and father. We would sit down and watch what was happening in the Montgomery bus boycott. Now my mother, even though I'm from San Francisco, was born in San Francisco, my mother's from Georgia, not far from Augusta, Georgia. And so watching that with my parents had so much meaning to watch what was happening, because at the same time, as men and women and children and families, as they walked instead of riding in the back of the bus, they made a choice. They made a historic choice. They made a choice that they would value, that they had value, and they had rights. They made the choice. And while they did that, at the same time, my mother, who was born in Georgia and went to school, she was applauding what was happening there. And the way that she applauded that, in celebration of that right here, gave me a sense of what was important in the world. You understand what I mean? And in a sense, since she and my father gave me a sense of that moment was an important moment in history, not only the history of that community, of that Montgomery, but also history of this country and the history of the world. So those are the important things about. And then when you learn that aspect about what are the important things that you can find that change the world and change that we're a better country, a better community, and a better world as well.
Any more questions? You have a question? Danny? Any more questions? Yeah.
At the back, quick. During your tenure of being an actor, how did it affect you trying to get roles, knowing that white actors were dominant during that time?
I didn't hear it. I didn't understand. Go ahead.
So during your time as being an actor, how did it affect him knowing what?
Knowing that white actors were being chosen for roles that he may have wanted.
Knowing that white actors were being chosen for roles that he may have wanted. If in fact that happened.
I've always felt that the roles, the opportunities I had, or opportunities that I made, but I didn't worry about what other actors, white actors, or black actors, I didn't worry about what they got as opposed to me getting. You understand what I'm saying? I didn't think about that. What I thought about was how do I do the best work that I could do? And sometimes that the work that I got roles that other actors expected they were going to get, or several times, you know. And so that happens. But it's the work that I do is to try to be the best I can do in that moment. And whether our judge is not that important to me, of what I'm thinking about what white actors think are not that important for me. There are choices that I'm going to bring to what I do that are important, that are valid for me, that validate me.
Other questions? Okay, come to the mic.
My question is, what made you pick here out of all places? Because we're really looked over a lot when it comes to famous people. As they say, coming here.
What made me come here?
Yeah, so why you chose to come to Selma?
Well, I've been to Selma before. The last time I was in Selma was 10 years ago.
Jubilee.
Huh?
We heard the Jubilee.
We had a rain at the celebration, the anniversary of the Pettus Bridge. I came here. You know about the bridge. Okay, good. but I came here in celebration of that. But I came in celebration because my friend, we went to college together, asked me to, Mr. Bonner asked me to come here and talk to students here and young people here and talk to an audience, and have a conversation with an audience. Thinking that would in some sense, I had struggled reading. I had struggled, and because I have with dyslexia, but I have struggled with reading. But I was really wonderful about math. So in college, when I was going to school, Mr. Bonner, I didn't major I majored in economics. And when I finished college, I came and worked in community development. So I worked with tutorial program, education programs, and I did that. And then all of a sudden, I found myself acting when I was almost 30 years old. Because remember I'm saying I'm 77 now. So I'm almost 30 years old, and then finding that I had a passion for that, and that's the way it is. So one of the things it says, what are the things that you're passionate about? How do you excel in the things you're passionate about? I struggle with reading, but I got through with math, whether that math was algebra, or whether it was geometry, or whether it was trigonometry. All those things were things that came easier to me and comfortable with me than I did with reading. And it's so ironic that that's what I do most of the time now, reading.
He's being modest. When we were in college, he was the star actor. He was at plays all the time, and we went everywhere he was acting. So he hit the big times when he was 30. But when we were 19, 20 years old, I left Selma, running, by the way. I was 19 years old, and we became college And we was first San Francisco State, State College. San Francisco State is where we waged a major revolution there, struggle to create black studies all over the nation, led by Danny and other students in the Black Panther Party. But Danny was always the consummate actor, doing very complex plays. A lot of plays on Broadway. But this young lady also has a question.
I have
You need the mic. Yeah.
what made you want to become an actor? You know, you have to read the lines, but you said you wasn't really good at reading. So, like, what made you do that? Like, become an actor, but you said you didn't really know how to read it. You know, you have to read the lines on it.
She said, what made you become an actor, even though you couldn't read, and you still would have to read the lines?
Well, I'm going to say I was a slow reader. What I'm saying, it's something about the idea of playing roles. And I came, when I started acting at a very important moment. It was the Black Arts Movement. The Black Arts Movement that was happening, this is years ago, that was happening in around the country, where it was emphasized so much. In fact, the Free Southern Theater Company was a part of that. The Free Southern, people forget about this, so some of those people down here found theater as a way of encouraging families and men and women and citizens to, you know, to encourage them to go home, you know, there was an incredible, so there's ways in which art worked. And so I became later on understanding the history of acting. Our history as artists in art has always been for one in terms of transformation. Not so much personal transformation, but this kind of that transformation of community, of building community. So I found that to be the case. The storyteller, the stories the songs, just as much as the song, the music. Our music has been one of transformation. The music of telling our own truth. So we found ways in which, through acting and through plays, that we were able to tell our own truth. And that's the part of it, you know. Sometimes we think of that, there's so many plays that you can tell and you can identify and everything else, but that's how that was my way of finding what I did best. You know, I did good when I worked in city government. I was a program manager of programs, youth programs, and evaluation specialist. I did all that. It paid me a paycheck. I was able to support myself. But the fine I did, I got a chance to do something that I loved and was passionate about.
And that's the key. That's why my brother Jay here and Anna with my sister, I don't know where she is, we have created a non-profit, the Selma Cross-Cultural Nonviolence and Performing Arts Academy with Reverend Crum, housed at your school, your private school. Reverend Crum is the treasurer, because we want Danny here, who's going to be our first teacher at that school, to teach you acting, teach you performing arts, teach you songs. You know, we have both, you know, blues, gospel, jazz, hip-hop. All of those are American art forms that you created. Coming up next is going to be Elaine Brown. She's a classic pianist. She plays piano, she writes music, just like Rose. But we are a creative people. And as Danny was saying, you find your passion in this transformational. You create that benefit you individually, you as an African American, and the greater community, and ultimately the greater world. So at this point, we're going to ask Elaine to come up and share some words with her. And you're going to hear more from Danny. So get up and stay, give Danny a hand, and give Workflow a hand. Do you have more questions? Oh, I'm sorry. Two more ladies have a question. No, you want the statement. Okay, come up. They have a seat. This is a statement for Danny. Is this a statement? That's to Danny. Okay, have a seat there. She has a statement. The little second one for work. Okay, Susan, she's finished.
I just wanted to show you my appreciation. I feel like it was very important to let people get recognized, showing no black people can make it no matter what. I thank you for coming up to speak with us, Mr. Wood.
Oh, one minute. Thank you. Okay, when you lean forward, this is for words of law.
I'd like to thank Mr. Workman for speaking to us about nonviolence and telling us his story. In doing so, he has reminded me that I don't have to use my fist to fight back because the power is really in the mind. I grew up with my grandmother telling me that the more you know, the more you grow. And I didn't understand it at first because I felt like it wasn't important to me enough to really take in what she was saying. But Mr. Worthlong has shown me here today that it really is, because knowledge is power, and he has shown me that it is courageous to be nonviolent. So to thank him, I would like to sing a song to help my beloved grandmother.
Oh, great.
Y'all gonna repeat after me? Okay. All right, choir, the future choir of the big university. Come on, y'all, come on. She wants to sing this song for our beloved warriors. Y'all can sit right there. Nonviolence. Put the hands together, come on. Nonviolence is for the courageous, and I'm courageous. Do you want to be courageous? I said nonviolence is for the courageous. I'm courageous. Do you want to be courageous? And anyone who gets your back. If anyone bullies you, let me tell you what to do. What to do? Get up, stand up, get up, stand up for your rights, stand up for your rights. Get up, stand up, get up. There's a better way to fight. There's another way to fight. Nonviolence, it's for the courageous. I'm courageous. Do you want to be courageous? Nonviolence, it's for the courageous. And he's courageous. He's courageous. You want to be courageous. You want to be courageous. Anyone can get your back. And anyone can hit your back. If anyone bullies you, let me tell you what to do. What to do? Get up, stand up, get up, stand up, stand up for your rights. Get up, stand up, get up, stand up. There's another way to fight. There's another way to fight. There's a better way to fight.
Wonderful, wonderful. And this man taught me that. He taught me that on this day, September 16th, which is tomorrow, which is the first demonstration we had here in Selma, we didn't even know who he was. But unbeknownst to us, he and Worthlong had come to Selma, and he had observed us at the church, at Brown Chapel, organized and determined whether we were going to go back out in the street because we've already been beaten bloody down in Carter's drugstore, or whether we were going to go back to Hudson. Every hand went up that we go back in the street. He and Julian Bond was sitting in the back of the church. Worth gave his wallet to Julian and said he was going to follow us students. And he followed us students, and we were peering out of between the bars. We didn't even know who he was when this white man called him up. We only knew when he drove his green Corvair to the Freedom House right down the street and said, I'm now going to take over for Bernard. He and Coney are going back to school. And he then said, now what do you all want to do? Just like he said today. We said, we want to go back in the streets. He always let us make decisions. So when do you want to do that? Now. He said, okay, well then March 7th, we're going to have Freedom Day. Everything that is segregated, you all are going to integrate it. Every door that you can't go into, every library, every theater, every restaurant, every fast food store, you're going to go in. And we're going to take all of the adults with us because you mobilize them now to go down and register to vote because they can't vote. So 3 weeks from the day we had the first demonstration on September 16th to protest the killing of the poor girls in Birmingham, today, September 15th, we went out because this man said, everybody's going to be free today. October 7th, Dick Gregory came down. His wife Lillian came down. James Baldwin, the famous writer, came down. Howard Zinn, the Howard white snake worker. He was teaching at Harvard University. He came down. Felton Henderson, who was the U.S. Attorney General, who now was a retired federal judge, he was here. He got beat up in Clanton. But everybody came out. I went into the public library with a group of kids, Viola. We went into movie theaters. Oddly enough, when we integrated the white library, we went in, a group of us in Hudson, pulled books off the shelves, sat down, and pretended like we were reading. Really, we were scared, we were waiting to get beat. The white librarian came home and looked at us. We kept on walking. We go, wow, integration is easy. She didn't mind. She's white. She just let us read. So we said, okay, let's go down to Thirsty Boy, which was a fast food restaurant. Only the white kids could go in. We had to go around to the back, ring a little brass doorbell, and get our hamburgers and french fries out of this window. White kids could go right in, sit with their little salad shoes on, their leather jackets, order their strawberry milkshakes and their hamburgers and french fries, and we couldn't. And it was painful. So we said, today we're going in. There we got beaten, we got arrested, we went into the movie theaters, everywhere. And we kept doing that from October 7th right on through the passage of the 64 Civil Rights Act, right on through the passage of the 1965 Voters' Rights Act. And that was because of Worthlong, Bernard, and this lady Collier. Bernard Lafayette organized us, but Collier, well, Bernard mobilized us, but Collier organized us, and this man then led us to freedom. So, as a result of that, out of this whole struggle came the Black Panther as a symbol of freedom, which then was adopted by the Black Panther Party for Defense in Oakland, and Elaine Brown led that Black Panther Party for Defense. So Elaine, would you please come up and share some words with the kids?
Y'all know a story.
I'm going to talk for myself. That's what I do. Now, I'm happy to see all these young people, because believe it or not, some of these old people sitting up in here used to be young too. And I'm the oldest one among them because I'm 80 years old. But I'm still hanging in there, you see what I mean? So you can continue what you're doing. I'm very happy to be here in Selma because we were certainly awakened to some of the disparities that we didn't realize we were suffering. Because where I grew up in Philly, I grew up in the hood, you know, you might not be old enough to remember Eve, Philly, where I'm from. You know. Everybody know who Eve is? Anybody know who Eve is? No. Boy, that's amazing. She was one of the first young black rappers, female rappers with, what was his name? Who? DMX, thank you, Rough Riders. You don't know that?
Need a generation guy.
Okay, that's all right, Joe. That's all right. So, the point I'm making is that, so there was a difference, and you have to look at the conditions on the ground. So in Philadelphia, we didn't have the immediacy of what was the effects of segregated
facilities because we had certain facilities that we could go to. We could go to a drugstore, we could vote, and so there were certain other things that were there. So I want to talk about, first of all, has anybody ever heard of the Black Panther Party? No, never heard of it? What's your idea? Nobody's ever heard of the Black Panther Party?
I did. We had.
Well, I can see. Go right ahead. What have you heard about the Black Panther Party? Anybody?
Oh.
What'd you say? What'd you say?
Influential part of the movement.
Pardon me?
Yeah, we're an influential part of the movement. Great influence.
Movement?
Movement.
Movement? Well, the Black Panther Party was a pretty large national organization, and I'm surprised that you go into a school and you haven't heard of the Black Panther Party living here in Selma, Alabama. Matter of fact, when I heard Danny ask you if you were taking algebra, most of you look like of the age that you should be taking algebra. What's wrong going on here? How come you haven't taken algebra?
They take algebra.
Well, I mean, well, all right, I want, let them speak. Nobody's taking algebra? For real? Okay, but why you guys act like you didn't take algebra?
We shot.
Oh, you did? Okay, well, you did. So you taking any history classes?
Yes.
So you reading about Selma and the Independence Bridge and so forth? You reading about that? And what was that about?
Civil rights movement.
I know, but what was it about? What was that particular march that we all call Bloody Sunday? Right to vote, right? And so you're going to school in Selma, Alabama, never heard of the Black Panther Party. That's almost unbelievable. So it tells me that the school system here is one more issue that has to be addressed. Because you cannot grow up black in America and not know the history of your people. Why do you think we even are in the situation that we're in? I love hearing some of you say, well, you know, we thank you, Worthlong, and I thank you for all that you did to awaken us and all that you did for us so that we can have the things we have now. But what do you have now? There are no more problems. Everybody's just happy, satisfied, walking around good, just happy Negroes on the plantation, feeling good about everything. Everything's fine now? Is that right? Is that how you feel? You don't have any issues that you think you need to address yourselves in your generation? Because we used to say in the Black Panther Party that, you know, you young people full of vim and vigor, you are like the sun at 8 or 9 in the morning. We're looking to you to continue the struggle. We can look back, but we always, like Sam Cofield, you can look that up. We always look back so we can go forward, right? All right, so we want to go forward. What are some of the issues that you're dealing with right now that you can imagine? I don't mean you as an individual, because we're really not individuals. We're part of a group of people who came out of slave history in America, is that right? We're African people who came out of a history of slavery in America. So what are some of the issues you think black people in Selma and elsewhere? Yeah, go ahead.
Black on black violence.
That you think is an issue, black on black violence, what does that mean?
Like us hurting each other instead of hurting each other and hitting each other.
And everything else is okay?
You said one.
So it's just, well, I did. So what do you think the problem is here? You think it?
The mindset.
Pardon me?
The mindset.
Do you think it's some kind of criminal gene that we have? Do you think it's something wrong with us? What do you think is the reason that there's so much so-called black on black violence?
One issue is modern day slavery.
What did you say?
Modern day slavery.
Modern day slavery. Go ahead. What did you say? I'm sorry, I can walk over. Most black people what?
Like some people like our colors can't, they don't know their history, they don't even know like slavery or history or slavery, and second we can't come together
and do you think that's the fault of you? How old are you, man?
I'm 17.
How old? 17. And so I talked to you about just mentioning the Black Panther Party, and nobody here has even heard of it. So something's going wrong with the education system, that they're not teaching your history and the role that you have in America. We used to say that in the Black Panther Party. So, very, what did you say?
He said I had that same.
Okay. she's heard of it, but haven't heard any more about it. Go ahead. Don't you find that amazing? Aren't you guys a little upset about that? You heard what he said about Danny Glover being started when he was one of the people that was part of it, whatever that is. It's all right. He was a part of that first wave in the United States where people, students, fought to have black history taught in public schools and public universities. And it was the longest student strike. They went out, they struck, they called the National Guard in, and they refused to leave the school, and they refused to do anything until we had black studies programs in all of the colleges in America. And that's how it happened. It started at San Francisco State, and you need to look that up, and you should have been taught that by now. So I'm glad to hear what you're saying, that in the public schools, they don't want to teach you anything. Now, what'd you say, Doctor? Well, they teach you that Thomas Jefferson was a wonderful man as opposed to a slaveholder, right? Things like that. Well, then you're lucky to be here. And so you're going to have to spread the word. But one thing you can do is say, what can I do as a young person? Because, as I say, believe it or not, we were once young. What can you do at 16, 15 years old that the same people that marched on the bridge who were teenagers did? One of the things you might think about doing is insisting that the school teach you your true history in the United States of America. You got a guy like DeSantis and these other racists who don't want you to learn about your history because they don't want you to get mad all over again. Because once you know, you can't unknow, right? Once you know that you really were coming from a slave history, why do we have the highest rate of poverty in America, we black people? Why do we have the highest incarceration rate in America? Anybody know anybody in prison? Anybody know? That's all that knows somebody that's been in jail or prison? Come on now. We have the highest percentage of people in prison in the United States. The United States has the highest percentage of prisoners in the world. Even though we're only a small percentage of the world population, we have the highest percentage rate of people in the actual numbers. Doesn't that bother some of you? So there's things that we can do together. The Black Panther Party came certainly on the heels of not just the movement in Selma, but because there was a long chain of struggle that we've been involved in since 1865. What's significant about 1865? The theoretical end of slavery in America, right? You were enslaved in America. That means your little identity and all that didn't matter. You were just working for free for several hundred years in the United States. The country was founded as a slave-holding nation. We were slaves when the independence of America was declared. These things you should know from your history classes. So, in the long struggle from 1865 forward, after slavery was prohibited, at least legally, we find that we had a long struggle trying to find, what, housing, trying to find any housing problems here in Selma? Everybody okay with the housing situation? No, there's some housing issues too, right? Can't afford it, doesn't look that good. I mean, I've bought the place myself. I mean, out of Oakland, where I built some housing in West Oakland. So after 1865, we fought against lynching, we fought against re-enslavement, being put on sharecropping farms, especially in places like Alabama, taking cotton after slavery was over, for nothing. And so we've been struggling just to survive in America from that point to this point. But in 1965, when the Voting Rights Act was passed, because of the March in Selma, literally, what was the Voting Rights Act? It gave everybody the right to vote. And what did that translate into? Not so sure, since 1965. So in 1966, with the movement going on in the southern part of the United States, the blacks who had migrated to the north had really not done very much in terms of desegregation because those issues weren't peculiar. There were other issues like police brutality. What you have any understanding about police brutality about black people? Notice who gets killed by the police? We do, right? I got a young man in prison right now, went into prison at 13. How old are you, young man? 13? You look about like my boy. That's why I said that, when he was 13. Can you imagine going to prison with an adult men 13 years old? That goes on all over the country. So these are some of the things that I'm hoping you'll become conscious of, because you've got the fervor, the fire, and the strength, and the life in you to make a difference. So what was the Black Panther Party? Very quickly, it's not important, because I'm not here to tell personal vignettes about myself and whatever contribution I may have made. But what the Black Panther Party was about was continuing the struggle, coming out of an urban environment where we had migrated to, coming from the South, unable to get a job or a lot of other things, and thinking that we could do better in the North, meaning Oakland in my case, or in the case of the Black Panther Party. And we took the position that the only way that black people were not free, and we said this was a freedom movement. It wasn't just civil rights, it was for human rights, for our dignity as human beings. And so we continued that struggle, but the difference was, as you know, Mr. Worthlong, we said we had the right of self-defense, and we carried guns. We said we had the right of self-defense, and we were not going to be beaten up, but we would fight back. But then we had different circumstances. We were certainly outnumbered and outgunned, but it wasn't the same set of circumstances as here, where you really weren't going to die just looking at it the wrong way. So we had different tactics in different environments and different things, but we were all involved in the freedom movement. And should we still be involved in a freedom movement, or we just feel like everything's fine except for a little detail here and there? We just, basically, black people were free in America. Because that's something that you have to think about. I'm old at 80. We old. We're going to die soon. You're going to live. And it's on your shoulders. Not to say you stand on somebody else's shoulders, but to be the, as Obama liked to say, the change you're waiting for. You are the change. You are the ones we're looking to take your turn and to make a decision that you want to rise up and do something about the conditions under which black people live. So the conditions are not the same. You can go into a Woolworth, but you don't own no Woolworths. You follow that? Now why would that be important? Why do you think it would be important? When Rosa Parks got on that bus to get a seat, we still don't own buses, do we? Who owns it? Do we own it? Do black people own bus companies? Airplanes, trains, transportation. Talk about Hollywood. Do we own Hollywood? Do you just want to get a job somewhere and hope for the best, and hope that that one chance will come your way? So the question is, do we hope? I like to say that I want for myself what I want for my people. What I want for myself, I don't want more for me than I want for you. I'm not looking to be better, bigger, badder than you. I'm hoping that we as a people will rise together. So the Black Panther Party took the position that the only thing we can do as a people is to create the kind of fundamental change that would get rid of that very system that we're still begging to get a job in. So the question is, do we want to get a job, or do we want to be self-determined? So our answer was that we wanted freedom, power to determine the destinies of our community. We want to own the things that affect us. So we go out here and buy Nikes or Air Jordan, whatever is being sold for $150 or $200. I don't know what the latest shoe is that don't care. We don't own any of those lines of clothing. We don't produce them, we don't own them. So we're out here going crazy with each other over some stuff that is not even ours, okay? So I'm hoping that in this opportunity to speak with you, that maybe you'll read up on the Black Panther Party, because I'm not going to waste your time with my story. You can read up on that too if you like. The main thing is, what is your story going to be? What is your contribution coming out of this one piece of the movement here in Selma, Alabama, that we all want to commemorate and praise? I'm glad to be here. You have a legacy here that is powerful, and you need to seize it and remember who you are. And remember how beautiful you are, and don't accept just anything, but stand up and decide that you want to do something more or continue that struggle and recognize that it needs to be continued and not become complacent. One thing you got to do is demand to know your history, and I'm glad to see that you're all beginning to learn that. So if you wanted to ask me some questions, I'm good, but I think you've had enough speechifying from old people, and so I don't need to do that, but if somebody wanted to ask a question or make a comment, that would be good, but if not, thank you very much for allowing me time to speak with you. Thank you. You saw the movie Black Panther, right? No, but I'm saying that you saw the movie, so you're familiar with the name Black, so it's the name Black Panther Party. Right, she said, I heard about the Black Panthers, and I heard they carried guns. Was it male or female, or both? Well, it was both because I became one of the leaders. It was a paramilitary structure, meaning that we had arms, and we were armed against the police mostly for self-defense. And there's some people here that know about arming for self-defense, even though they may have a nonviolent philosophy. You can still be nonviolent, but not accept a total brutality. So we chose to think that it was part of our human right to have food, to have clothing, to have housing, medical care. Black people dying at the highest rate in America of maternal mortality, meaning mothers dying in the first year of birth or the beginning of the birth of a child. We have high infant mortality, we have high cancer death rates. So we said we have a right to have control over our health, over our bodies. And we have a right to have control over our bodies to the degree we're not going to let you come in here and shoot up our people and get away with it. Now that doesn't mean that we were going to go to war, but it did mean we had guns and we did shoot back. We had many battles with the police, many of which we survived, and we fought back in our own decision of our rights. And women were in leadership, and everybody carried a gun that was in the Black Panther Party, including me. So we had to be trained on weapons. But 90% of people that live here in Selma were also trained on weapons and had guns, but let's not get crazy, you know what I'm saying? So the reality was people who were nonviolent also sometimes had guns. But our point was to show Black people that we can be courageous in another way, and that we can stand up and say, and that the police would back down too, in this particular thing. The name of the Black Panther Party came out of a political effort here in Lowndes County, Alabama, and Greene County, Alabama. And it was based on the fact that the white Democrats had a symbol called the white rooster, and that everybody who was a political party had to come up with a symbol. And so the Lowndes County Freedom Organization, which was part of the SNCC, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, they chose the football symbol from, I don't know, it was Atlanta College or whatever, it was Clark. Well, Clark and Atlanta were separated at the time, so it was one of the football symbol of one of the two, but it became Clark and Atlanta. So in any case, that symbol became our symbol for the Black Panther Party. It became their symbol here, and it became the symbol that we used because we liked the strength of the Black Panther symbol. But that was our symbol, but that's where there was a difference in terms of Black Panther Party for self-defense. But yes, we were armed, and we were men and women, and we did not define our roles in the party based on our gender, because I ended up being the leader of a mostly male paramilitary organization. Pretty weird, huh? Anybody else? What, you got another? Go ahead, I appreciate you. Right, neither is sin. Well, we didn't get anything. We didn't get anything at the end of the day, but we got a consciousness. We made a difference in some ways, but I don't like to see that as a success because I say that black people are not free. And that's when we'll be successful, when we're free. But we did, she asked how long did it take to get some things done. We did have a program called Free Breakfast for Children, because we said our children are going hungry, don't have breakfast in the morning. So we created a program called Free Breakfast for Children program, which was a hot breakfast that we distributed in every one of our chapters, including here in Alabama. And then we did free clinics, so you could have free health care. If you didn't have insurance, you could go into at least one of our clinics, here, there, and everywhere. But we demonstrated and we created models so people would understand you had a right to health care. It's not something you don't have any money later before you drop dead. We don't care. You don't have any money, you can't go to the grocery store. What kind of society says that to children? What society says that to a mother with her children? If you don't have any money, too bad. You ain't got nowhere to live. You can't eat. You can't go to the doctor. So that's the new wave of struggle, but it was really begun with the Poor People's Campaign that Dr. King started. Anyway, anybody else want to say a comment, ask me a question? But if you get a chance, you know how to use Google, you look at Twitter, TikTok, whatever other stuff is out there in social media. So Google the Black Panther Party and learn something about the history of your people, because that's a part of what you have a challenge. It's your turn. You're not too young, because we have people 16 and 15 years old walking across the bridge. We had people in the Black Panther Party, little Tommy Lewis, and then another who sacrificed their lives, Jonathan Jackson. Sacrificed their lives, they were 17 years old and challenged the system and were killed. So you are not too young to get involved in your own future. Not your future as a movie star, not your future as a developer of housing or something, but your future as a person who can use your talents and skills for yourself, but also always remembering that everything for me that I do as a black person, I have to remember that I'm part of a larger community. It's not just me. And we have to get away from a lot of me that we use today and get to ourselves as a group. So we lift each other up. I'm hoping that'll be something you'll take away from this moment of commemoration. I thank you very much for the time you gave me.
I just want to add one thing. My son has done an excellent law review articles on what they call political necessity. And he talks about the Black Panther, and he talks about, I'm going to bring that out with some of these children. He talks about how the Black Panther, there was a law in California that you were free to carry your guns. We got that same law in Alabama, right? That you don't even have to have a permit. Well, when this beautiful sister and the Black Panthers began to carry their guns for self-defense, guess what they did? They did away with the law. But that law is back now. That law is back now, so white men can freely carry their guns anywhere. But you know what happens? They want guns to be free in our community, and what do we do with those guns? So many of us would. How many of y'all know somebody's been killed? Hold up your hands high. How many of y'all know somebody's been killed?
Killed. And that is killed by guns. That, killed legitimately. Yeah, by guns. Exactly. Okay, well, we think Reverend Crum, who's brought you all in, is doing a wonderful job with your school, which is a private school, to give you the freedom to learn everything, particularly learn about who you are in the Black Panther Party and the struggle of black people, going back to 1619, when they first kidnapped us and packed us into ships like sardines, brought us across the Atlantic, all the way over here and scattered us all over North America, not only the United States, but Brazil and Jamaica and Mexico, all the way across. As many people they brought out of Africa as now in Africa. That's the history we must learn, and we must always continue the struggle for the freedom of all black people. So Reverend Crum, you want to take the kids to the next stage?
Thank you. Let's give everyone that we listen to today and we're going to break for lunch. Listen, everybody, lunch has been prepared. day. But anyway, lunch has been prepared for us outside across the street, so we're going to, it's mission to go there, then we'll be back 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock.
For the 1 o'clock mass meeting.
Yes.
You'll be a part of that as well. All right.